Welcome, everybody. Today, we are going to talk about trust. But before we get there, we will be doing our 3 C's or P and I as well, programming and intention, as those are for those who come in and just find this by itself, these are important aspects that we just need to go over each time. And the first is choosing crystals. And there's lots of ways to choose crystals. I'm a firm believer in crystals that wink at you. If they wink at you, then it's probably something that you need. And if they all wink at you, then you have to decide which one's winking the most. Because I have a all winking problem. So they just all wink at me, and then I go, oh.
Right.
So that is that's the trust your gut. This goes for in a shop, in Etsy, online, on Facebook, on whatnot, wherever you go. There's lots of reputable groups of people and people selling incredible crystals, and just go with friends, contacts, reach out, who's doing, who do you know, who do you trust, and ultimately trust yourself, because that's the most important place in choosing crystals. Cleaning crystals. Cleaning crystals are, I am a person who does not use water to clean crystals. That is because I don't want to have to memorize which ones I can clean with water and which ones I can't. So I just don't do any of them with water. If one is dirty, I'll take a damp rag and wipe off the dirt, or I'll use a makeup brush to get the dirt off of it and out of it if it's in the crevices or something. This is physically cleaning, obviously, that I'm talking about. Now, electrically cleaning the connections when you get a wild crystal and it is found. Jordy doesn't know, but we have now renamed all raw crystals will now be referred to as wild crystals. Wild crystals. So you have a wild crystal, and that's going to be much easier because if you know the person who collected it, or if it was collected and then put it in a shop, it has much less traffic of how many people have connected to it. So, or if you go on your own and find wild crystals, then you are taking it straight from the earth. And then for me, if I was rock hounding, then I would thank the earth as I found the crystals. I would be so grateful for the offering and to being able to find those opportunities that they each present. When you get something wild or tumbled or shaped, there's been a number of different contacts that have had with it. And so you need to be able to try to get the crystal back to as close to the connection to the earth as possible. Now, incense is one way to do it. Resin, whatever works for you. I use Nag Champa the most, probably. I also use some Catholic resins that I use on charcoal, and they smell amazing. They're mostly frankincense and myrrh with a couple of other stuff mixed in. They're amazing.
What was the first one you said? Nam Chamba?
Nam Champa. It's Nam Champa. It's looks like this. I did exactly what I said I didn't want to do. It looks like this. It's in every Whole Foods. It's in every Etsy store. It's looks like this.
Oh, okay.
It's an Indian. Obviously, I have a huge connection, not obviously, I have a huge connection to India since I lived there for a number of years, and it is one of my biggest internal connections is with India. So that for me is very connective. And then when I'm putting crystals through that smoke, because it's connected for me to my spirituality and to my development, it helps get rid of those connections that are with those stones that have had transferred through however many people to get to you, including the post office guy might be pissed off, and that one may also go into them. So it's a good thing to choose and to clean crystals when you get them. Sound, singing bowl, cymbals. There's a note. You can use your voice if you have that kind of voice. My stones would be like, stop now. But some people have a beautiful singing voice, and you could, just like with breath is another way to do it, you could probably hold it and sing a tone to clear it out. And that would be a really great way. I'm sure Carrie could actually do this, because I know she sings and I know she's really good at cleaning things with breath. I tend to get lightheaded and feel like I'm going to pass out. So it's not, I'm getting better, but for me, it's a challenge. I'm working on it though. And I can do it now, but I usually use my singing bowl. You can put it, if it's a big, I put it in the singing bowl. If it's small, and if it's big, I put it around the singing bowl, and you'll hit it and you'll hear it. And when it's clean, it'll just keep carrying on. That's when you know something's clean. If it's fuzzy and connected, it'll go and it'll kind of fade out. So that's the tone that you're looking for. The same with voice, breath, as I said. You can use sunlight and moonlight can also be used for cleaning crystals, just like burying them. I don't bury them because then I have to clean them. And that's kind of like a really petty thing. Anyway, so those are different ways to clean. Did I forget any of them? And if you need to know if I've forgotten any, you can go to a previous video or following video and I will go over it again. So that's cleaning. Then charging / intention / programming. Charging is when you bring the crystal as close to the earth connection as possible. That's charging it. That's allowing that crystal, which will have the frequency of all, I have blue lace agate in my hand, of all the blue lace agate that is in the earth and all of those frequencies, you're charging it to get as a clear signal from them. You can charge them in the moonlight. You can charge them in the sunlight short times, just because it can take some of the color out and it's very strong. Intention is the key with charging crystals and with programming crystals, both. Intention, where you're coming from, what is moving in you. If you have had a really crappy day, probably trying to charge your crystals, you need to then settle yourself, clean yourself, be ready for that to then charge. Intention is charging. Programming, what you are hoping, what you are connecting to with that particular crystal, and the intention that you have to use it and what you need from it. Now, you take something like clear crystal or clear quartz, and it's called the Master Healer, and it will hold anything that you put into it. That is why, I don't know if that's why it's called the Master Healer, but that's why I think of it as the Master Healer. Because if you need protection, if you need self-confidence, if you need heart healing, if you need mental agility, it can do all of it. So that's like the clear quartz. Programming a quartz to do something specific for you that you need it from it, then again, it's intention. You can put it on an altar, as we spoke about, as was spoken about. You can hold it in your hand. You can have a ceremony around putting an intention in a crystal, or you can put it in your palm. Open up your palm, your center that's in your palm, the sensitive that you can feel stuff with. Put it in your palm and ask nicely what you need from it, and it will deliver. They do deliver. I did read somewhere they commanded crystals, and I found that to be, I was kind of offended on behalf of crystals. So I don't command them, I request of them to provide that frequency that I need. So there's our CCC INP. Kind of went through that quick. Moving forward. So today we've been on looking at words and language. We started with the language class, and we've been sort of looking at words and crystals that tie with words and support words. And so today we're going to look at trust. So initially I started close in, and then I kind of moved out, and I've decided in the last half hour that we're going to move from big trust to smaller self-trust, because we're going to move in. So in big trust, it is a cultural agreement that we trust certain things. Let me do something really fast here, which I didn't do before. So Merriam-Webster's definition of trust is assuredness, reliance on the character, ability, strength, or truth of someone or something, dependence on something future or contingent, hope, you trust that something will happen. And then in the trust of, someone's in the trust, your children are in your trust until they are 18, the custody of. Obviously, there's the trust to do with property, which we are not going into those. We are going into the connection and ability to connect to the truth and to be able to share that together. So we have overall, big picture, we have institutional trust. Institutional trust is shaky these days, more than it has ever been. But institutional trust is trust in the government, is trust in money, like the dollar. We trust that when I go to the store and it says something's $1 and I give them $1, that they're going to take that dollar. We have a trust in that. For many people, a trust in a religious organization. They trust that institution will do what it says. And again, back to truth, will be truthful. Companies, so that's like the big trust. Then we go to like the next level, which is organizational trust. Again, going into the government, we trust. For example, my neighbors had a incredibly bad argument this morning, and I could hear them over my earbuds, and I wondered if I should call the police. I trust that if I call the police, that they will come. This is a trust that we have. This in some certain communities, this trust is shakier than other communities. But if we found someone injured, we would call 911 and have an emergency, have an ambulance come, and we trust that that will happen. And so this is an sort of like the next level down in looking at yeah, in trusting. Sorry, just got a work email and my eye caught it. This is why I can't do chat. So it's organizational trust. Along with organizational trust comes trust in experts and trust that people will, when they say that they did a study on something, we trust them that they did that study, and that if it's a double-blind study, that someone else can reproduce it. One that popped into my head was there was a study done on autism that set the tone for autism all through the 90s that turned out to be made up. And so we trust, a lot of us, I do, trust science and trust the people that are saying these are scientific findings, and I trust them. Usually because it's someone else can do it, but there is that sort of trust in experts. We trust doctors. We kind of trust doctors. People trust Google MD. Not sure why, but people still do trust Google MD. People, when they're given information, they assume that it's the truth. And we talked about empirical truth and the sort of bigger picture truth last week, that we trust people are telling us the truth. A newer trust is in technology. We trust that our bank, that we can transfer money from my account to your account. We trust that it's secure. I trust when I look at my bank to see what my balance is, I trust that that is the correct balance. So we have a lot of trust.
And then I cry.
I'm sorry, what?
I said I trust that that's my bank account balance, and then I cry.
So that kind of trust is important because we do things institutionally. We trust that whole system. When people who put all their money in stocks for their 401k and it crashes down, it's a lot. Besides the grief of everything changing in your future, you also lose your trust in a system because it crashed. Even though you know going in that it's a risk, but you still get upset because you trusted it. Technology. And, we trust that our iPhone, we trust if I send Carrie a text, she trusts that if it says it's for me, she's trusting that it is for me. And if I called her a bunch of names, she might be like, okay, did one of her kids steal her phone? But we trust that that's that kind of technology. We trust it. I do. I work with seniors and I'm trying to teach them to trust it because they don't trust it. And it's like, it's actually fairly trustworthy, fairly being the moderating word. So we have trust in technology. And then we have what they call interpersonal trust. This is not intimate interpersonal trust. This is trust in specific contexts. Like when you are a part of a team, you even say you're part of a larger group of teams, say online or something, you trust that those other people are doing their work. If you were in high school or college, you have all been assigned a group project, and had that one person not do it, the whole project was built on trust, and that one fucker didn't. My 14-year-old son just ran into this, and he's like, the guy didn't do anything, and the other group members were devastated because they trusted that this person would do it. So those kinds of trusts, we're in those interpersonal trusts, we are trusting that people are honest, fundamentally honest, not cutting you off in traffic honest, but that they're fundamentally honest, that they're reliable, and that there's a mutual respect that goes with interpersonal trust. And this ties directly in with professional trust, which is, again, trust of coworkers and trust of our bosses. Trust, we are given trust that we will do what we say we're going to do, specifically for work, or somebody asks you to do something and you say, yes, I'm going to do it. Carrie was talking about her pet peeve about people not being trustworthy when it's really simple to be trustworthy. This is not someone that she's got an attachment to. She doesn't have necessarily a big history with, but there's this fundamental trust that we have that is important because it's part of what makes society, and it makes us all be able to function together. When I am at a red light, I am trusting that the car behind me is not going to slam into me thinking that he's going to go through the red light. So we have that kind of, that bigger trust. Now it gets more personal. Personal trust. This is trust that we have with the personal relationships that we have in our life. The trust between friends, the trust between family, the trust between our intimate partners. And this is built, this kind of trust carries emotional connection. We might get frustrated with somebody who is, we have an interpersonal relationship like a coworker, but we don't necessarily have the emotional investment that we have made and that we make with family. And you trust as a child, you trust that your parents will provide for you or will be there for you as to the best that they can in the circumstance. We are born of trust. We come out trusting. A child is born automatically trusting that the mother will take care of the child and will feed the child. The body has an innate trust in it. It starts to respond. If you've ever had a kid, you know, if you don't feed the kid in a certain amount of time, it's really uncomfortable when they're little babies. So that is a kind of trust that is built over time. And we trust the reliability of those people. We've already talked about reliability in a bigger picture. But in a smaller picture, we trust our friends to be there. That's why they're friends. And that's why we get so hurt when someone breaks that trust, because we have given them emotions, we have given them connections, we have given them access to us as a person, and we have intentions with them. Whether I have intentions with my kid, I intend for them to be safe until they're on their own, and then I hope that all that I've done will let them fly. These are those part of that personal trust, which is then there's obviously the romantic, close in family, and that kind of kinship is built on trust. This is why we get so devastated when we become an adult and we realize that some of the people that we trusted were not what they said they were. Now, as a teenager, we find this out, we get super pissed off, and we have that aspect with people. But I think the one that gets buffeted around the most is the romantic trust, the love that we have for someone that is built on trust. This person has said, I'm trustworthy to be with you. And you trust them. You trust them in your body. Oh, sorry. I was thinking in the bed, but you trust them. Oops. Gonna have to put a rating on this one. We trust that that person is what they say they are. We trust that what they tell us is true. And when those bonds, when this personal trust is broken, it is devastating at one level, because you've been giving and it's chopped. Because there is a point, somebody can be untrustworthy and you can continue to trust them even though you know that they may not be totally trustworthy. But there comes a point when you're like, in your mind, you say to yourself, I no longer trust this person. And it is heartbreaking. It is, it hits this center. It hits our heart. It hits the heart center. It hits the emotions. This is where heartbreak comes in, because that trust has been broken. It can be broken in lots of ways, but through all the noise of it, through all the personal examples, what's breaking your heart is the loss of trust. Because all of it, safety, stability, all of that revolves around that trust that we have in life, but then in micro, with each other. This group of people I trust. I have had exchanges with it, energy exchanges. That's a trust. I trust that I'm safe. I trust that someone will be honest with me if I am not being honest with myself, which now we're going to move into self-trust, which is a whole another kind of trust. So we learn a lot about ourselves with those people that we trust. If we trust someone who's genuine, then you can trust when they say to you, that was not okay. And you go, you're right. That wasn't okay. I apologize. You have to have that kind of trust. Now, when that trust is broken and someone says to you, you're a piece of shit, and you have had that trust, it goes right in. With the institutional and with those outward trusts, we trust them. We trust them as a society, but they are external. When we get into the personal, it goes inside. When you hear things like that, it starts to erode your self-trust. This is the next trust, is the trust in yourself, that you are being honest with yourself and with others. It is the trust that you are in your ability to do things, the trust that you have the ability to do something, I trust myself to be able to teach about this. It has to start with me, and then I can share it with you. The personal trust is about the beliefs that we have, and we trust those beliefs, however they look. And as we grow, that trust will change. We will be more connected to ourselves, especially when we have people outside of us that we trust that can help reflect back. Because self-trust is one of those things that we need to nourish. If you've had a challenging childhood, then your self-trust may not be as intact as it is designed to be. The human has a design, just like we're born with trust. If you are brought up in a situation, or if you've been in circumstances that have eroded that trust in yourself, it is it's very challenging to come back to yourself and to start to trust yourself again. Now, here's a societal trust that people that are not necessarily agree on, which is our gut feeling, our instinct, our intuition. The institution, the big trusts, they say that that's not real. So many of us are brought up believing that that's like, my gut tells me not, I have a bad feeling about this. Oh, stop it. You're just whatever, blah, blah, blah. And we start to not trust ourselves. So when you start to grow as a person, when you start to do that shadow work, do that personal development work, do that hard work of looking at where things are in you, you start to build trust again in yourself. You learn that the voice that you hear that is self-doubt is not actually you. And you start to trust those abilities that are natural to being human. The clairs, our instinct, our intuition, our gut, that we learn to trust that again. And that takes work. Just like having a relationship, when you have a personal trust with someone, takes work. Because you don't just meet someone at the grocery store, shake hands, and trust them with your privacy or with your secrets or with your love and affection. That's just not how it works. That takes time. That takes exchange back and forth, frequency exchange. And it takes time to achieve the self-reliance that I believe in myself. If I make a decision, I know that it's the best thing for me. It's like you get to know yourself while you're building that trust in you. It is having self-trust. When you start to feel it, people start to see you as having integrity. People see you as being resilient. These are not things that you're consciously building. I have never, and I've been working personal development work since I was a teenager. I've never thought to myself, I need to build myself with more integrity. I've never thought that. That's never come up. I have thought, because when I was younger, I was a storyteller, which is not always true. Storytellers don't always tell the truth. And I wanted people to trust me. So I taught myself to be truthful, because it had always been a get by technique. And so I trust myself. I started to trust myself from those frequencies that had been given to me free of charge from my family, that changed how I was. So part of self-growth is building that trust relationship with yourself and your higher bit. We all have a bit of something that is bigger than everything. I don't know, that's not the right words. We all have that bit of stardust, that bit of universal energy. And the closer we can get to that, the more we can trust ourselves, the more that people can trust us. And then the more is like concentric circles. But it does start with being able to trust oneself. Ways to, I'm going to talk about some crystals that can help, particularly with personal trust and self-trust. I can't do anything about institutional trust. I'm just going to have to keep riding that one out. But personal trust and self-trust, there are certain crystals that can help. There are also ways, journaling is another way to build trust in yourself. I pat myself when I get something right. If I say, oh, with the patient, and I'm like, oh, so, do you like crosswords or do you like cross stitch? And they go, oh my God, I love crosswords. And I give myself a little pat. Even in front of people just think I'm rubbing my arm, and I'm patting myself to remind myself that I got it right. So that my intuition knows, acknowledgement, yay, you got it right. So I do it out of habit now. So when I get something right, I just sort of do a little pat. You don't have to do that. I do that because I guess I needed that sort of pat on the shoulder, the pat on the back to trust myself. And I've gotten better because the more I acknowledge that I got something right, the more that it happens. It is that work of building our intuition, building our clairvoyance, building our clairaudience and our clairsentience, and all of those clairs. Building that comes from being able to know that you are trustworthy. If you're not, if you find yourself, that there's certain areas that you're not, then I would start taking steps, small steps, one step at a time, to learn to build trust in yourself in that area. Okay. Heartbreak. Obviously, heartbreak is one of the biggest damagers of trust. When our heart is broken, that personal trust that we have is severed. And many times we are dealing.
Brandy Lemire, Brandi.
Brandy, you're on speaker. That trust in oneself.
478-451-9446.
Hang on one second.
9446.
Mute. Okay. Okay, where was I? Can't remember. Trusting oneself. So when we're broken, when our heart is broken, we feel devastated. In part of that is because we put our self-trust in the hands of another person. We gave them some of that deep part of ourselves to another person. this is why it is also familial. When you have a child and you see that child for the first time, you feel a different kind of love that you've ever felt for anything else. And it's human design. We feel that. We feel it. It's different. Many people say I fell in love for the first time. It's a different kind of love. But when that interpersonal connection and love is severed, we don't know where to go. Many times. We can talk to friends and they can be there and they can listen and they can try to help. But it's a very lost feeling because you have lost that thread that you had built from exchanges. And each time you talk to someone, you build a thread, the silver threads of connection, communication, and then it goes back and forth. And so it becomes solid, it gets severed, and you're left with energy that was going out that then comes back and is toxic. Or it's not toxic, it's painful. Not toxic, painful. That's when you have to start again trusting yourself again. And as I talk about it, I put a note. We go through different stages of trusting ourselves. We trust ourselves and then things happen. And then we rebuild and trust ourselves again as we grow. And then things happen, things change, we face ourselves, we deal with trauma, drama, shadow, ego, and then we trust ourselves, we rebuild and trust ourselves. And so trust is not something that happens once, it's something that we continue to build on. And it is like life. It has moments that are the signal's very clear, and it has moments when the signal gets a little fuzzy. So a number of the stones that I'm going to talk about that can help with trust are blue, which I thought was very interesting when I was doing the research. And part of that I realized is that it's hard to trust someone when you are full of anxiety or distress or stress. It's really hard just to trust someone. If you've ever, I listen to true crime. If you've ever heard someone on a 911 call in a really awful situation, they are having trouble trusting that the person's going to get there. They're like, come on. You know, it's very hard to trust someone. So I think one of the reasons a lot of the stones with trust are blue is because in order to trust, we need to be calm and we need to have that calming, soothing influence allows us to trust. I think this is true for both personal trust meaning the trust between people, and self-trust, that trust within ourselves. Any stone that builds on your intuition is going to have an element of self-trust in it. Anything that allows you to enhance your psychic abilities is going to have a certain amount of that trusting essence. Because this is why I love language. Language is a cloak of force. It cloaks a specific essence, a specific energy. And that's why I believe language is so important, because it's a cloak of force. And so the more that we're able to give expression, self-expression, expression to another person, that is coming from that trust, then I think that it is the stones can help build that in you. So having said that these blue stones, I'm going to take a sip and we're going to then go on to some stones. This was a bit heavier than I anticipated. When I was doing the work, I didn't think it would get so heavy, but it is as it is. So I'm going to take a sip here and then we'll start talking about some crystals. So this week for the second time, I stopped eating sugar. And I'm just going to tell you that tea and coffee without sugar sucks. I'm hoping to get to a point when it doesn't suck as much, but it sucks. Just wanted to share that one with everybody. All right. So the first stone we're going to talk about is Amazonite. Now, it's blue-green, okay? I get it. It's one of those stones that kind of moves up and down. I'm sure when I get through my stones that Carrie will have one or two on her desk. I have no doubt. Here's another one. This one's a little bit, it looks really green on the screen. Here's one that's not as green. See, it looks really green. This looks like Phoenix stone. This is actually blue-ish, bluish. Yeah, I mean, it goes from white to very green to blue. So it's an interesting stone. So Amazonite is very soothing and has calming energies connected to it. This is why I said, like, you cannot, if you are stressed, it's hard to trust. So as you build, and this includes self-entrusting oneself, if you are stressed with yourself, you've got that fucking busy mind going on and not stopping, it's hard to build, it's hard to hear your gut. It's hard to hear your intuition because you're too busy cutting yourself down. So like with the language class, whereas how you speak to yourself is the first step. I can't do that. Yeah, you fucking can do it. Shut up. Go away. When you hear that, stones help, crystals help, herbs help. Doing what you love helps the most. So for me, crystals help because I love crystals. So it helps alleviate worries and fears, which are the things that stop us building trust. When we meet someone, we have an initial trust that they'll talk to us and that kind of basic. But when you start to get deeper with someone, worries come up and you have to negate them. You have to say, no, I trust this person. Shut up. You all know that I'm not talking to someone, right? You all know that this is the unseen me that, talks a bunch of bullshit all the time. Shut up, fuck off. So Amazonite also helps with communication, which is one of its main, like, normal, not normal. These are specialized towards trust, but communication and strengthening relationships. So if you want to build a connection with someone, say you have a romantic interest, giving them a piece of Amazonite might be a really good idea. I mean, there's all 150 million stones that you could give them. One, Amazon's just one. My poor guy ends up with more stones in his bag every time I see him. It's like, I don't know why he has a flight bag. And I don't know why it's getting heavier. I don't either. So that's one stone. Amazonite works well with being able to communicate. If we can't communicate, we can't trust. We have to be able to communicate. The more that we are authentic with ourselves, the more that communication becomes true and becomes trustworthy, and it's more authentic. Now, the next stone, also a soothing and calming stone, is blue lace agate, which, shocking to my shock and horror, this is all I have. This is all I have of blue lace agate. What the fuck? So we know what I'm going to be getting next time. Blue lace agate. Anyway, it helps promote effective communication, and it enhances your ability to express yourself. Again, we're talking about the throat. We're talking about communication, because it comes from here, but it's got to come out. So these are stones that calm us down and allow us to express and allow it to come out. And it also helps, one of the factors with blue lace agate is that it helps build trust in relationships. So trust is one of the words that goes with blue lace agate. And it feels like it should be soft. Like some crystals, we're talking about obsidian earlier, and obsidian is not necessarily a warm and fuzzy stone. This feels like it should be squishy, like it has that kind of radiation, that frequency. It's like soft.
It
I love
feels
it.
like it should be like one of those blankets, like you know what I mean? When you touch it, the energy from it is like it should be one of those like the blankets that are almost so soft, like
Yes.
you can't feel them. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree with you. Feels like that. All right. Then again, we're still up here. We're going to go down here in a minute. We're still up here. This is up looking more towards the third eye. It is sodalite. Sodalite then goes between these two. Here's my pretty sodalite tower. I did not bring my black light to show you how cool it looks, but it looks really cool. And then here's two little sodalite spheres. I know this one looks like it's a lapis, but it's not. And then here's a tumble that I did. So there's my little sodalites. Now, sodalite is a bit more cerebral. It is more to do with the logic and intuition and the self-trust that comes with how we think. Because this is part of it. This is part of it. This is part of it. And then expressing is part of it. We've talked about the expression. The stones can help you express. This is coming from a higher point where you learn to build trust in your own mental processes, in what you think about, and in your assessment of a situation. You learn to trust it. You learn to trust your own judgment and your decision making. This is up here. And sodalite's really good for that. If you are a second guesser, I would bet sodalite would be kick-ass. I'm an Aries. I'm not really a second guesser. I'm a jump in the fire and then make another decision to get out of the fire. That's what I don't sit on the fence. I go in and then I go, oh, this was a really bad decision. And then I make another decision to get out. But I'm not one to sit on the fence. Sodalite would be a good one if you're a sitter on the fencer and you need to be able to be more clear and to be more decisive and to trust that part of you more. Sodalite's going to be a great stone. I know Carrie's building an elven crown, and I was thinking that sodalite would be such an awesome stone to do that with. What are you doing it? What stone are you doing yours with? Labby?
Black obsidian and azurite.
Okay. Azurite.
Yeah, because it's for
work.
divination purposes. So the obsidian for protection and azurite for connecting the higher.
So I was just thinking that this would be not a round one, but this would be a really good one as well if you wanted to sort of be located in yourself, in trusting every part of you.
It'd be really good too, like if you had writing to do, if you were sitting down to be creative, sodalite is really good for being creative and for writers. It's the stone of writers. So if you needed to
Okay.
focus on something like that, it'd be really good too.
And that would be really good if you were starting to journal. If you're starting to do some of that shadow work that's so important. And I used to be really great, and I've sort of fizzled out, and I know I need to, because when you write, you see where you need to trust yourself. Like, you can read it and you go, okay, I need to work on some confidence, or I need to work on some finding a place for these ideas, or it is a great place, or I need to just let go of I was just thinking about family, that sometimes we find things out that we trusted, and a lot of us want those close end people that have not been trustworthy, we want them to apologize. Doesn't happen, just for the record. Doesn't happen. So you need to just trust yourself and know that you're okay and that you're right in yourself. Right meaning like in line with yourself. Not saying that you're always correct, but that you're in tune with yourself and in alignment with oneself. If you're waiting for someone to apologize, don't. They won't. It'll never be, even if they said they were sorry, it'll never be enough if that's what you need to move on. So just move on and keep on dancing. Okay. Now, heartbreak, which is what is probably one of the most eroding things of our self-trust and our trust in people. So for that, I think rhodonite is a really good stone for that. Here's this, oh, cool, you can see, it's super gemmy. See how beautiful and gemmy that is? And I didn't realize that I had like this palm stone is also kind of gemmy. And then I have a wild one, which is not very gemmy. Here's my wild. That's what I'm calling them from now on. My wild one here. Here's my wild one, caught in the wild. I didn't catch it. Somebody else caught it for me. So rhodonite. Now we've come down. We were up here talking an expression, and now we've come down to the heart. And this is a stone that assists in emotional healing. When that communication, that thread of communication that you have with someone that becomes severed, this is a great stone to help rebuild in yourself and provide you the empathy and the compassion that you need to have for yourself. It is it promotes understanding and enhances trust in the most important person, which is yourself. And it also helps promote trust with another person. So if you're building something new, if you're building a new friendship, this is a very good stone. It doesn't have to be romantic. It can be. It absolutely can be. And I talk about heartbreak. Heartbreak can be, you can break up with a best friend, and that can be as heartbreaking as it, if not more so, than with a guy or partner, with a partner. So this is a great stone to help with that. It helps heal those wounds. And then it also fosters new relationships, healthy relationships. It helps you become healthy in yourself, and then you start to communicate but this is the stone that goes with. Obviously, rose quartz is another stone. It is another stone that promotes trust and compassion, and it does that. I did not go into that. I decided to look at rhodonite because I felt like rhodonite really, to me, has that self-healing aspect to it, and self-compassion. And say you're in a relationship and that person does something and you want to stay in the relationship and you need to heal in that relationship, this is also a stone that can do that. It can help promote a healthy relationship between you and another person. If you decide that that's what you want, then obviously, as I said, crystals will do what you need them to do when you ask them. But rhodonite's really connective to self-trust and self-healing and self-expression. There goes my text. So, yeah, rhodonite. So that was a little fast today. I am not going to apologize, but I was a little bit faster than I intended it. I am going to stop the recording and then we can have a chat. So I hope it was useful and helpful for everybody. And I will see you next week. Do, 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 do.